holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh hear the angel voices, oh night divine, oh night when Christ was born, oh night divine, oh night divine.
One of the things she said to me as soon as she saw me was, is there any way I can get my purse so I can get my makeup on?
She asked if she could get her makeup on?
Yes.
To be arrested?
Yes.
Really trivial question, and it's going to reveal how shallow I am. But before they book me, can I clean myself up a little bit?
You're going to be taken the way you are.
Should have at least done your makeup, Jodi. Gosh.
That'd be great. Yay, bottled water. Never put my makeup on in front of a total stranger, but that's okay. You're not that much of a stranger.
Jodi was really concerned about her image, right from the get-go.
It's been like weeks since I put makeup on. I'm glad to see this is waterproof. I don't plan to cry, but, you know, I probably won't.
Why do you need to be?
Travis and I used to argue about my driving because my rearview mirror was always facing me instead of toward the back. He made me feel vain sometimes.
It appeared to me as if she had some experience behind the camera. I mean, she actually gave our crew direction.
Whatever you want to change, or if you don't think something looks right, just let me know. I'll adjust it. I guess if I start getting shiny, then we can take a break. Can you do me a favor and just hold that?
Sure.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I
got it.
As the jury gets ready to consider a possible death sentence. It was filmed just after her 2008 arrest, and it's a very different side of the woman we
Killer.
I guess I've seen better days, but that'll have to do.
ABC's 2020 shot this interview with the notoriously vain femme fatale just after she was arrested in the summer of 2008, just after she flashed this smile in her mugshot. Jodi Arias as smug and confident as ever.
There is one thing I wanted to address, and that is my mugshot. I think I did a little tilt on my head and gave a little smile. I just want to address that because I think that people don't really understand. And there are a few reasons I did that, and one is one of my first thoughts when I was actually being booked. I was a little like, wow, I see this stuff on TV all the time. This is so interesting. It's almost just like it is on TV. And I thought to myself, you know, what would Travis do if he were in this situation? This is why I'm here. And, you know, barring the fact that he would likely not get himself into such circumstances, he would be smiling. He would be like, hey, you know, he would just flash this grin that he always does. And so there was part of that, and then also part of the fact that I knew it would be all over the internet, so why not? And then there was also the fact that I know that I'm innocent, and even though this is a very serious thing to be charged with, there's no reason for me to be sad. Because I know that I'd never hurt Travis, and there's no reason to be upset over this in my mind. Everything, I have faith that in the end everything will be made known, everything will come out, and in the meantime, smile, say cheese. That's really all I needed. Sorry, don't roll the tape yet.
Jodi, how did you meet Travis and when?
We met at the Rainforest Cafe in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas.
How long ago was that?
That was in September of 2006.
What was it about him when you saw him that kind of drew you to him?
You know, there wasn't really any initial magnetic attraction. At the time, I shook his hand. He said, hi, I'm Travis. I said, hi, I'm Jodi. And his name was just another of many names that I had to remember. I was meeting hundreds of people that weekend. We were all there for a big convention. And so it was right after I had finished eating with a group of people, and we got up and shook hands with a few people. He was among them. And then we began to walk throughout the casino. And he made it a point to keep walking next to me and keep me engaged in conversation. And we just, by the time we made it around to the big gold lion in the front of the lobby, we had discovered a couple of common interests and that sort of thing.
How did your friendship develop more?
Well, we hung out throughout the weekend, had a lot of fun, exchanged phone numbers, and it was one of those things where I didn't expect him to call, but he called me the very next day, and so I was like, oh, hi, and he's a good conversationalist. He just kept me engaged in conversation constantly, and he wanted to know about me, and people like to talk about themselves, so it was just one thing led to another, and we became great friends.
Did you two work together?
We worked together on occasion. We were with the same company, but we sort of worked in different departments.
Is that how
so
you
to
two
speak.
met at the same?
Yes, we met at a convention where our company was.
You mentioned that you guys love to travel together. Tell me a little bit about where you traveled.
We traveled to, the first major place we traveled to was the Grand Canyon. We went there on a few occasions, Havasu Pai, with some friends, and we went to Sedona. We went all over New Mexico. We saw the Carlsbad Caverns, we saw Roswell, we saw the Balloon Fiesta. We went to a spa that was kind of renowned in Santa Fe.
Why was he a good traveling companion?
Oh, he was a great traveling companion for many reasons. Traveling with Travis was kind of like traveling with your own personal comedian or serenader or philosopher. He always had great things to talk about that would make you think, and he was always bursting out in a song, and he was a very funny guy, so there was never a shortage of laughs, and so he was just a great person to travel with. He had an enthusiasm and a lust for life that we always wanted to see what was around the next corner, and so I think that was something that we both shared.
Can you talk a little bit about your faith? I know you had mentioned in the previous interview that he actually baptized you.
He did.
What was that?
The reason, when a person is baptized into the church, they generally are able to choose the person they'd like to baptize them. And the reason I chose Travis was because he was very instrumental in bringing me into the church. And he was the first person to share the gospel with me and give me a copy of the Book of Mormon. And he challenged me to read it, and I did. And it was a decision that I made, and I could tell he was very honored when I asked him, and he, of course, was happy to do so. So, baptizing, I think, is a sacred thing.
How did your friendship grow into this relationship that you shared?
We just continued. I lived in Palm Desert, California. He lived in Mesa. So our friendship was really over the phone every night, when all was said and done. When his day's work was done and my day's work was done, that, he would inevitably call, and we would talk for a while, anywhere from, half hour, or sometimes it would end up being 4 hours, and then we'd fall asleep and things like that. And then, with time, it just kind of progressed into a little bit more and a little bit more until we decided to make it more official.
And then you two actually ended up moving in together, didn't you?
No, we never lived together, actually. I spent a lot of time at his house, and we spent a lot of time traveling. But no, he had all male roommates.
Okay. I must have been ready.
Tell us about Travis's faith.
Travis is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He became more active in that in the church when he was about 16 years old, and he told me that he began to really began to question things, and that's when when he prayed about it, that's when he knew that was the path that he wanted to take in his life, and he was determined to go on a mission and that sort of thing.
You admired that in him, didn't you?
I admired that because, he was a very determined person. When he set his mind to something, he set out to achieve it. I'm a little bit more of a procrastinator. He would live his life by lists, and he really enjoyed checking those off. It gave him a sense of accomplishment, and I think it really kept him focused. And he tended to accomplish more in one day than some people do in a month. So, one day it would be, I think I want to paint this room, and I would come over the next day and it was painted. He wouldn't put things off.
You mentioned that you really respected his opinion.
I did. Yeah, especially when it came to just knowledge of the gospel, things like that. All of the resources that one needs can be found on a website like LDS.org. But he kind of gave me a more personal perspective on things. There were some questions where I just was like, why this, and he was able to answer those.
Were you in love with Travis?
I think that being in love and loving someone are two different things, and there was a point in time where we were in love, but it was short-lived.
Why did you guys break up?
There was sort of a breach of trust in our relationship.
On your part or his part?
Both.
You guys couldn't move past it?
No, we really couldn't move past it.
But you guys managed to keep dating?
We didn't date per se, we just hung out.
Was it separate interests? Were you interested in different people? He was interested in different people? How did you?
We did eventually move on in that regard, and I think that it was hard to fully move on, I think, because we continued to spend a little bit too much time together on occasion. But yeah, we did.
So from the time you met and the time you developed this friendship into a relationship, how long were you guys together as a couple?
I'd say a period of 5 months.
And how
I'm sorry.
It's a period of 5 months. And talk to us about those 5 months. What were those 5 months like?
They were a lot of fun. There was a sense of uncertainty at times, and there was a sense of excitement, and there's an excitement about the future, and we just had a lot of fun together, and it was one of those things where it was very fun while it lasted, and when we decided to break things off and become just friends, we continued to be friends, and that's just how it went.
Was there jealousy on the part of both of you guys, or?
I would say, on my end, not so much jealousy, maybe a sense of insecurity, but that's just me. On his end, sometimes. I don't think it was warranted, but I took it as a compliment.
I was reading, I think it might have been his last note to you, May 1st this year, and it said, you're one of the hottest people he knew, and you must be making your town a lot hotter for being there.
Oh yeah, he said the hot quota or status, or I don't remember what he said. He made some comment. Yeah.
Did he bring you up a lot?
I don't know.
Was he able to bring your spirits up?
Oh yeah. He was very uplifting person. He knew every one of my buttons. He could bring me up or down, at the drop of a hat. But mostly he brought me up.
Were there problems with the problems in your relationship in those 5 months start pretty much immediately, or was it 3 months into it, or kind of help us understand that?
It was pretty much our relationship. It was just an average. I don't want to say average. Nothing is average with Travis. But any problems that we had, they occurred really right toward the end, and that signaled the end of our relationship. It's nothing that we continue to dwell on and try to work out.
What was the one thing that finally you said, this is it, or he said it?
It was just a breach of trust. I really don't remember the day at all. I just remember when I got the phone call, and it was late, 10:30, I think.
Who called you?
A mutual friend of ours.
And what did he or she say?
He didn't say much. He didn't know much. And he just said, something has happened, and I don't have a lot of details. And I said, well, what can you tell me? And again, I just don't have a lot of details. And I thought, well, maybe it's a mistake. Are you sure? And he said, I'll let you know when I know more, but you're the first person I thought to call.
What was going through your mind?
It was a shock, a feeling of shock and a sort of disbelief. And there wasn't, it was a real restlessness because I didn't know. And I felt, I don't know, you just don't know until I actually got confirmation of what had happened. That's when things really began to sink in.
What did you do at that point? Once you got more information, what did you do?
It was over the phone, and so I just remained as calm as possible. And well, I got confirmation from his bishop, who actually confirmed it. And at that point, it was just about me holding it together over the phone and crying as silently as possible while he told me what he knew. And then I hung up with him and
Were you here in town, or were you?
I was in Wairika, California.
When was the last time that you saw Travis?
It was sometime in early June.
How far before his death, do you remember?
I don't remember exactly, but it was very close to.
There were, you were mentioning in the interview before this, the pictures that were found and recovered of the two of you. You were mentioning what was on those pictures. The detective did show you one. Could you explain that?
Well, it's all public information, but it's nothing that I'm really comfortable talking about. And it's nothing that he nor I ever intended to be made public. It's something that we intended to keep private. But now that all of this has been thrust under a microscope, everybody knows about it. So part of me says, why bother trying to skirt around the issue? And another part of me says, have a little discretion. But again, it's public information, and they're just photos that we took and that we deleted with the intention of, that wasn't a one-time incident. I mean, there were many times where,
you took pictures.
Yeah, pictures, whatever, and any kind of media, and it was deleted because it's just something that we didn't intend to ever keep.
Can you talk about some of your love for photography and just in general the type of photography that you did?
Yeah, I've loved photography since I can remember, since I got my first camera. I've taken pictures of everything you could think of, and I think what I really began to enjoy and settle in on was people. I really enjoy nature and sunsets, but people and their expressions, moments, especially weddings, when you can just see expressions on people's faces and emotional moments. I love capturing that sort of thing.
Jodi, why do you think investigators believe that you killed Travis?
Well, there's a lot of forensics suggesting that I was, in his house. Of the evidence that they presented to me, I was asked the question, if you were presented this evidence and you were a third party, what would you think? And, I need to be honest, and the evidence is very compelling, but none of it proves that I committed a murder. None of it proves that I committed a crime. What it does substantiate is what I did tell detectives.
I have to ask you this, did you kill Travis Alexander?
Absolutely not. No, I had no part in it.
Did he have any enemies at all?
To my knowledge, no. He had a strong personality, but he was very well liked and loved. I just can't think of a single soul.
So you had nothing to do with Travis Alexander's death? Is that what
Nothing to do with it.
To know that he was stabbed some 27 times and shot once in the left cheek, who could have done this to him?
I don't know.
Who do you think killed him?
I have no idea.
Do you think that it was a random thing or somebody that knew him? I mean, this is a guy that you were pretty close to.
This was a guy I was close to at a time when we were really trying to move apart from each other. So, I mean, there were certain details about his life that I never did know about, and there were even more details that I did not know about, as well as details about my life that he didn't know about, because I had moved on. I had moved to California. So we were making a sincere effort to grow apart and to be apart and to move on. But nonetheless, he did remain a close friend of mine, and I just can't think of.
In police reports from the Mesa Police Department, it states that some of his family and his friends told detectives that you had become obsessed with Travis. Is that true?
His family and friends said that?
According to the police report.
Police paperwork.
Oh, well, I think that I've only met his grandmother, so I don't think that's accurate at all for his family to say. But I think that if I were in their shoes, I would be going very much off of what police were telling me. I wouldn't use obsession. I would say, I don't know. I think that when more evidence comes out, it'll be very telling that it was a two-way street, and Travis was a wonderful person, but he was also very persuasive, and he was hard to say no to, and it was hard. He wouldn't allow me to not answer his text message. If I didn't respond, he would keep calling until I did. And so To me, that wasn't obsessive behavior on his part. It was just, I took it as a compliment. He wanted to talk to me, okay, that's great.
But were you obsessed with him? Or those are the allegations they make?
No, not at all.
Jodi, you're pretty calm sitting here. Somebody who's been arrested and accused of murdering somebody, how are you managing to stay so calm?
Through my faith and through the knowledge of my own innocence. That's the only thing. I would be shaking in my boots right now if I had to answer to God for such a heinous crime. But I'm very grateful that this is one thing that I will never have to answer to when I stand or sit, when I'm before the judgment seat someday. And all of my actions, my thoughts, my words, the things I've done and said are called into account. This is not one of those things that will be brought up. I've done many things that are shameful, but this is not one of them.
Did you have a gun? Did Travis have a gun?
To my knowledge, it was like a 25 caliber gun. I did own a gun. It was a 9mm though, and it had never been fired. It was a brand new gun. But when my freedom is taken away for something that I didn't do, that's difficult to accept. And when I think of the ones who are capable of doing this, I like to think that I could be the bigger person and, what I believe, and this is something that comes from my faith, my religion, is that it's commanded of us to forgive all people. And I don't know that I would be big enough to stand before the person who did this and say, I forgive you. I don't think I'm ready for that by any means, but I think that one day I'll reach that point as I grow and develop.
But to know that this report is basically pointing all blame to you, it's as if police have stopped investigating anyone else.
Yeah, and that really bothers me.
Do you think you're being set up or framed or anything?
I can't think of any enemies that I might have that would want to do that. No, I don't think that.
Was the relationship ever violent?
Pass on that question.
You yourself said that some of the evidence that investigators have is damning, at least to them. How are you going to move past that? How are you going to get beyond this and prove your innocence?
That's just, that's a defense strategy that we'll have to work out.
Why did you want to speak out today?
I kind of feel like since I've been incarcerated, it's almost like there's been a proverbial duct tape over my mouth, and I haven't been able to say anything. There have been a lot of people that have been speaking out and saying things, on their side. And this isn't a two-sided story. This is a multifaceted story. There are many sides to this story, and I just don't feel like mine has been represented.
Why do you think family and friends started pointing the finger at you?
I don't know who did or said it first, but I know that some things were said because I was on the road that week. So I think that because as much as Travis and I told ourselves and everyone that we were just friends, I think that our behavior was not as clandestine as we tried to make it. So there were times when people would see certain ways we would behave and maybe wonder. I know that he lamented a lot that he got a lot of grief from his friends about the amount of time that we spent together. And
did they not like you?
I don't know that it was so much that. I think they were more concerned with his future prospects for marriage and where his focus was. And his focus definitely was on that. Marriage is, he viewed marriage as an important step in his spiritual progression. And I think he took it seriously, but,
This report says that your left palm print in blood was found on the wall. Your hair follicle was found on a bloody wall. A left palm print in blood. How do you explain that?
There is an explanation for that, and it will be made known very soon.
Is there anything you would say to his friends or family? Anything you would say to them?
There are so many things that I'd like to say to them, and I don't think that they are they in any way would like to hear it, or that they're in any position to even want to receive it. But I've said this before, and I'll continue to pray for this, and that is that I hope they can find peace.
This beautiful young woman is about to go on trial for her life, accused of the savage, frenzied murder of her ex-boyfriend.
I know that I'm innocent. God knows I'm innocent. Travis knows I'm innocent.
She's talking about Travis Alexander, a popular motivational speaker she dated for 5 months. The steamy affair with Jodi Arias came to an end last year when she says she discovered he was cheating.
It wasn't very pretty. Breakups are never easy, but that sort of signified the end of our relationship.
Last June, Travis was brutally murdered. Travis Alexander was found dead in his shower here at his luxury home in Mesa, Arizona. He was shot in the face, stabbed 27 times, and his throat was slit from ear to ear. Police found a camera here at the crime scene. On it, provocative naked photographs of Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander, taken the day he was viciously murdered. Another photograph shows Travis seriously wounded and bleeding. Prosecutors say 28-year-old Jodi went to her former boyfriend's home for a final tryst, took the provocative photographs, then murdered him. They even have Jodi's palm print in his blood.
Did you kill Travis Alexander?
I absolutely did not kill Travis Alexander. I had nothing to do with his murder. I didn't harm him in any way.
I met Jodi Arias for a jailhouse interview, her hair now light brown, and she dropped a bombshell, describing for the first time what she says happened the day of the murder.
I witnessed Travis being attacked by 2 other individuals.
Who?
I don't know who they were. I couldn't pick them out in a police lineup.
So what happened?
They came into his home and attacked us both.
She says a man and a woman wearing masks burst into the home and attacked both of them. Jodi claims she fled but was too terrified to call the police.
I'm not proud that I just left my friend there to be slaughtered at the hands of 2 other people. I'm not proud of that at all.
You understand, you look guilty here.
I understand that everything, all of the evidence against me right now is very compelling.
What really happened in there?
In a nutshell, 2 people took Travis's life, 2 monsters.
You did not shoot Travis.
No, I've never even shot a real gun.
You did not stab him 27 times.
No, that's heinous.
Or
I've never.
slit his throat from ear to ear.
I can't imagine slitting anyone's throat.
Jodi Arias is sticking to her story that 2 mystery killers murdered her former boyfriend, and she's convinced a jury will believe her.
No jury is going to convict me.
Why not?
Because I'm innocent, and you can mark my words on that one. No jury will convict me.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn, in the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty. 5 jurors find premeditated, 0 find felony murder, 7 find both premeditated and felony. Signed, 4-person. Is this your true verdict, so say you want it all? Okay, who's making her?
Want to go over his shoulder? So it's black and should be better. Alright, I'm thinking I'm going to come over through your hair here. You want to pull it to the side for me? I'll come right here. Okay, go ahead and put your hair down. Is that going to work, guys? Okay. You want to do a mic check on both of us? Can I get you to count to 10, Jodi?
Out loud?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Should be good there. Okay, want to do it one more time for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Great. And if you can put that mic cord back 100. Yes, absolutely.
Sorry.
Okay, I just want you to be aware that the doors are locked.
Lean up.
If anyone needs to leave, it makes a noise.
Go ahead, lean back.
So if you need to leave for any reason, if you want to stop, because I don't know if you want that noise in the background of the sliding doors opening up. It's pretty heavy and
We should be
mechanical.
good. We'll go straight through here. Get my notes up. Everybody's good?
Joe has a lighting one. Does lighting look okay, Joe? I'm gonna line.
You look nice. They've got you lit really well. They've got you lit really well. Remember, waist up, no stripes. Yep. Either one of you guys. Okay. We good?
Good to go. I'm good.
Okay. Just a couple of minutes ago, you heard the verdict from the jury. What are your thoughts?
I think I just went blank. Just, I don't know. I just feel overwhelmed. I think I just need to take it a day at a time.
Was it unexpected, do you think, this verdict?
It was unexpected for me, yes, because there was no premeditation on my part. I can see how things look that way, but I didn't expect the premeditation. I could see maybe the felony murder because of how the law is written, but I didn't. The whole time I was fairly confident I wouldn't get premeditation because there was no premeditation.
It seemed, and you got a lot of questions from the jury, it seemed like some of those jurors didn't believe what you were telling them, didn't believe your story.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I can understand that, I think, because of what the lies that I told in the beginning to try to cover up this, cover up that, hide things that I didn't want to be known, made public.
Why did you lie at the beginning?
Well, mostly because I was scared, but I also didn't want certain aspects of my relationship with Travis to come out, and I was ashamed of what had happened, how it escalated. I don't know if there's really a word, at least in my vocabulary, to describe it, but I think mortified is one of the closest words. Ashamed, things like that.
Did you avoid eye contact with Travis's family while you were in there, or did you make eye contact, and what are your thoughts on that?
I typically avoided eye contact. Travis comes from a family where they all sort of look a lot alike, so when I see their faces, I see Travis, and I see the man that abused me, and I don't want to look at that.
Is it hard? Do you have a sense of where the public feeling is about you, whether you're liked or not liked? I mean,
I get the sense that there is great division on both sides, but I believe the majority is against me.
what are your thoughts on that?
A psychologist once explained to me that society has this need to persecute people. They get some sort of gratification from it, so there might be something going on there. Beside that, I don't really, it's so convoluted that we could talk for hours on that, but it just is what it is.
You, in just a recent, and we'll talk about Twitter in a second, but in just a recent tweet you were talking about, you just mentioned the word suicide. I mean, how are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm not really looking forward to what comes next, but...
Explain that to me.
Well, it's just more court, just keeps going on and on. I just wanted to get it over with.
Are you focusing on the court, or are you focusing on what could be the worst outcome for you?
Well, the worst outcome for me would be natural life. I would much rather die a lot sooner than later. Longevity runs in my family, and I don't want to spend the rest of my natural life in one place. You know, I'm pretty healthy, I don't smoke, and I would probably live a long time. So that's not something I'm looking forward to. I said years ago that I'd rather get death than life, and that still is true today. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
So you're saying you actually prefer getting the death penalty to being in prison for life?
Yes.
That might surprise some people.
Well, I think that if you look at things eternally, it's not as scary. I mean, we do get attached to our lives, and I'm attached to mine. But I don't know, I can't fathom staying in one spot for the rest of my life. So I've been everywhere. And I think it would just drive me a little crazy.
You had some clashes with Juan Martinez. You kind of went after him on Twitter a little bit. What are your thoughts on Juan?
Well, prior to trial, I respected Juan as a very capable attorney, even though he's done some very shady things in my case, as far as hiding evidence and failing to disclose certain things, hoping it would just go away. But in the end, what does it matter? It didn't help my case, as far as all the evidence that did come to light eventually. In trial, I think that his accusation that I was seeking fame is absurd. I remember a hearing we had in 2011 when he stood up before the court and said, "I don't control the media. If it were up to me, I'd be on TV every night." So I think he's the one seeking fame, not me. But, you know, it is what it is.
You had some pretty tough things, I would imagine, to go through in the trial. During the trial, there were photographs of you displayed. I noticed you tended to look away. What were you thinking when those photographs were being flashed up in front of everybody?
I wanted to crawl under the table and just disappear.
If you had to look at some of the tougher parts of what you've been through for the last 4 months, what would they be?
Just coming to fully understand what I've put people through, my family and everyone else as well. That's the part I'll always regret.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Well, just the way everything happened. I think that if I had just been honest from the beginning, I'd be in a different place. And so would everyone else. And because of what I've done, a lot of people will hurt for a long time.
It's got to be a tough time for you, obviously, just learning what happened. But you're telling me that if you would have done things differently, do you regret how you went about doing things after Travis was killed, after you killed Travis?
Yeah, I think that I was just freaked out. Well, I know I was freaked out. I didn't know what to do. I knew that I couldn't just carry on as normal, but I tried to do that. I tried to act that part until, until everything came down on me. I just couldn't imagine going to my family and saying, "Hey, look what happened," or going to the police and saying, "Here, arrest me." I was just horrified with what had happened, and it was difficult to face that I had been pushed to that point and that I could be capable of something like that.
And let's talk a little bit about what happened after you were at Travis's that night and that day. A lot of people who have talked to me about it have said, how could she have gone up and been with another man, basically 24 hours after this? How were you able to put that behind you and basically go on a date?
I don't think I so much put it behind me as I just sort of checked out. I hardly remember that day. I don't remember it being nearly as intimate as he described. I remember falling asleep and taking a nap, and he was laying next to me. I remember feeling, it's strange, but I remember feeling safe. He wasn't going to snap. He wasn't going to, take advantage of me and try to do things I wasn't comfortable with. I just felt safe with that person, but I knew that, it's not like I went up there because I was hoping to pursue a relationship. I went up there because I thought, oh crap, I need to keep my schedule. So I went up there almost because I felt a sense of obligation inside in order to keep up the pretense, not because I was going off to have fun.
But it's odd, even to me, and I don't know you at all, but I feel like I know a little bit about you. But you really look at your hands and you realize what's happened.
Yeah.
And at that point, you say to yourself, I've got to go up and meet this person. I'm going to keep that appointment. I'm going to keep that date. I don't understand how that goes through your mind.
Well, what happened was I slowly began to come to while I was in the desert. And when I found my charger and I turned my phone on, there were tons of voicemails. One from Leslie, I think a few from Leslie, maybe one from Ryan. And I realized these people are wondering where I am. And I thought, I just felt like I needed to buy myself some time and figure out what had happened. I was very shocked. I didn't know what I was doing.
I'd like to go over just a couple of things in the case, if I could. When your grandparents' gun went missing, that's what most people point to as the point where you basically made the decision that I'm going to go down there and do this. What do you say to people when they make that point?
Well, I was really hoping the defense would call my sister because I spent the day with her. And we weren't at the house when that happened. We weren't even in Wairika. We were out of town. We were actually in no town. We were out in the middle of almost nowhere at a Buddhist monastery near the border of Oregon and California, taking pictures. I was really hoping my defense team would recover those pictures. They're on another hard drive that stopped working that they never made an issue of. Those photos on there are date and time stamped, and they show that I'm out of town during that time. So that was my hope, that we could show the jury that I was nowhere near that area. I mean, that's what I was really hoping.
So you're sticking by that part of your story?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Let's talk about the gas cans. That's another thing that keeps being brought up all the time. Was there a third gas can?
There was initially when I purchased it,
Right.
but I really did return it. I got $13 and change back, and I went on my way.
A lot of people are saying, who carries gas in the trunk of their car?
I didn't fill it up until I realized I was going to be driving across the desert on a highway alone that I've never driven at night. And it's something that we began to do when I moved to the desert because we didn't want to get stranded somewhere. Just being from the coast, 120 degrees is a shock to your system. So we sort of would travel with provisions and things like that. So not always gas, but I was taking a road that I had never traveled before. And suddenly being safe was more important than saving a few dollars on gas, which was my initial goal.
And the other thing that keeps coming up, or the jury seemed to have issues with as well, was the lack of memory over the attack.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that to me?
Sure. I think it's been described how certain memories come back with time and rather than get worse. And I've experienced a little bit of both. Memories have come back. It's not just completely blank. Little things have come back here and there that I remember.
Have things come back since we began talking about this, since the trial started?
No, these things, well, I can't think of anything specifically. These things have come back within the last year, 2 years. Things have been popping up and coming back, and I testified to that a little bit. Just different scenarios that have research. I don't want to get into the details.
Okay.
So I can't explain it. I think I have a good memory, and it's almost like I blacked out, but I mean, obviously wasn't unconscious.
You're talking about your defense a little bit, and you wish they would have done this and done that. Are you happy with your defense?
I'm grateful for my defense. They've worked very hard. Not 100%, but they've worked very hard.
What would you have changed?
There is a man who saw me with bruises all over. I would have made every effort to find him, and they didn't. There are other people who saw me with bruises. My friends, my sisters, and the defense didn't call them for their own reasons, and I think that that would have corroborated some of the things that I said. On the hard drive that we just discussed, the one that was not part of my trial, there are photographs during that time, and I think there might have been a photograph on there Maybe, maybe not. We wouldn't know unless we looked. But
Of your bruises, you're saying?
yeah, I took pictures of myself during that time, not specifically for that purpose, but just being on the road, and I just keep thinking maybe it was in that photo. Tons of things.
You know, what I hear from women a lot is if she was getting beat up, why didn't she call the police?
That's probably what you hear from women who have not been in my situation and been abused. I think at that time, if I can put myself back in that mind frame at that time, my fear of calling the police is that I would be seen as overly dramatic, or I would make an enemy of Travis, and I really just wanted us to be able to be friends, ultimately. I was scared of the consequences for him, and scared a little bit for me of calling the police and getting them involved, getting the law involved. And I didn't want that to happen to him. I just wanted him to go on and be happy and be successful, and I wanted the same for myself.
Let's talk about your family for a little bit. Your mom has been there for you every day in the courtroom. What are your thoughts on her?
I can't talk right now.
Is that the hardest part, thinking about your mom?
Yeah. My mom and my whole family. Yeah, that's difficult. As far as my mom, I feel like I don't deserve her. She's been a saint, and I've not treated her very well.
There was some talk about you getting physical with your mother. Did that happen in terms of fighting and things like that?
I vaguely remember the incident. I think when they say I kicked her, we were arguing and she was kicking me under the table, and I think I kicked her back. I was a teenager. She did anything she could to keep us under control. So.
She visits you often. What do you talk about?
Everything, pretty much. Sometimes they're good visits, sometimes they're bad visits, or unpleasant. Other times they're great. So.
What happens during the good visits?
Usually she's telling me stories about things that are happening with my family or my friends, or how many emails and messages of support that she's getting, people that support my family and me, you know, moral support, that they're behind us, and that makes me feel good.
What about the bad visits? What are they like?
They're usually just discussing unpleasant things, frustrating times. Things are very frustrating sometimes, and it's a drag.
Your artwork is all over the place. Do you take pride in the fact that people are paying money for your art?
It's interesting. I take pride just not so much in the price tag, but in the way I've developed the gift itself, or the talent, I should say. I take pride in that. I'm happy that I'm able to share it with the world.
I noticed that, and I saw this on another network, so I don't know 100% if it's correct, but that you buy large amounts from the commissary, and then you tweeted out that it's not only for you. Tell me about what you do behind bars when it comes to the commissary.
Yeah, after I was arrested, I'm no longer working or going to church, and so I'm not tithing anymore to the church. But the church encourages you to tithe 10%, so what I do is I take 10% of the dollar amount that I spend and I give that away. And then recently I've been blessed with the ability to spend a little bit more, so I'm able to give more. And I've been glad to be able to do that.
Are you still practicing your faith?
I don't think I'm still a member of the LDS Church, but I'm not actively practicing my faith at this point. They don't offer LDS services for maximum security inmates, and the Mormons rarely come around to visit me. So I've sort of fallen away for that. I don't know. I still have my scripture, I still read it, but it's hard to maintain an active status in the church when you're sort of cut off from it.
You said the Mormons don't come around to visit you. Who are you talking about?
They do come, but maybe like once or twice a year. They are volunteers that are members of the church that go to jails, prisons, facilities where people are incarcerated to visit them.
The Alexander family, especially the two sisters and the younger brother, if you could say something to them, what would you like to say to them?
I hope that now that a verdict has been rendered, that they're able to find peace, some sense of peace. I don't think they'll ever find the peace that they would like, but maybe they'll be able to have greater peace now, or some semblance of it, and be able to move on with their lives and remember their brother the way they wanted to.
Do you still think about Travis?
Yes.
In what way?
There's a lot of regret because I was really hoping to get a plea and avoid talking about all of the things that came out about him. If we had been able to avoid trial, we could have avoided just the murkier aspects of his life that he kept hidden. And these aren't just things that came from my mouth. They're his own words, his own emails, his own text messages, the activities that he was up to, photographs that show that as well. None of that ever would have come to light. It would have just been forgotten, and he would be memorialized as not perfect by any means, but somebody who was known to adhere to his morals and the principles that he espoused. But now the curtain has been drawn, and you can see the hypocrisy and everything that was there, and I regret that because I know that even though he was living the life of a hypocrite, that's not how he wanted to be perceived, and I think inside he really didn't want to live that kind of life.
There were some parts of your story that were definitely backed up by emails and texts and phone conversations and things like that, but a lot of people had real issues with the pedophilia when that was brought up. How do you respond to that?
Well, again, I mean, he's fantasizing about having sex with a 12-year-old on a tape. That's a pedophile by definition. Also, there's a photograph on my hard drive which my attorneys didn't feel was relevant, but it's a picture of him chasing around a naked 4-year-old boy with his Bible open, pretending to be a Catholic priest. I don't know why we were all hanging out. I thought it was silly at the time, and I snapped the photograph, and at the time I just thought he was mocking the Catholic Church in poor taste, and then that was that. But that was a year before I walked in on him, and so after that incident of walking in on him, I began to put all these things together, and that was one of the puzzle pieces that seemed to make sense to me.
A lot of people accusing you of tearing down a dead man's reputation.
I would have been very happy to remain silent and go quietly into the night off to prison. My defense team decided to rip the lid off because we were forced to trial. The state didn't want to settle. So it's not that I wanted to plow ahead and do this, but I took the stand because strategically they advised me to, and when I was on the stand, I had to answer the questions that were posed to me.
So if you had to do this all over again, you're in the desert, you notice that you've got blood on your hands, how do you handle it?
I would turn around and drive to the Mesa Police Department.
And what do you think would have happened to you then?
I don't know, but it would have been the right thing.
Let's go forward. Say you do get a long sentence. How are you going to spend your life?
I haven't decided yet.
Talk to me again, if you can, briefly, about wanting to hurt yourself. Do you feel like you want to hurt yourself right now?
Not right now. I think I've gone in and out of periods of that since 2007. There was some talk about me being suicidal in high school. I never was. I think I might have written the words something along the lines of wanting to die, but that's distinctly different from wanting to actually kill myself. So I never was. I found it strange at the time that after I had gotten into the church and I gained a testimony of the church, suddenly I'm feeling suicidal. I didn't understand that. But I never did anything, so it could just be talk. It could just be purging my thoughts, that kind of thing.
You're tweeting. Talking about Twitter. Is that your idea?
Initially, I've never been on Twitter. I don't even know what it looks like. I just have heard about it through other people reading about it in magazines. In 2009, somebody started a false Twitter account in my name and began tweeting, pretending they were me. So I had that shut down. And then it just became sort of an idea that I thought of in February, and we decided to go for it.
Are you happy you have?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say happy. I don't regret it.
Right.
Yeah.
What has it brought to you?
I think there's a little bit of satisfaction gained from being able to just impart my ideas and my thoughts and sort of let people know where I'm coming from. Whoever wants to look. I mean, you don't have to read it if you don't like it. So.
You went after Nancy Grace there a couple times.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Nancy?
I don't think she's worth it.
Juan, you also went after there.
Yeah, I just found it very highly hypocritical that he would point to me and call me the epitome of a liar when he has lied over and over on record in court over the years. I wish I had the ability to comb through those records and say, right here he lied, right here he lied, right here he lied, but he's not the one on trial. So in that sense, it doesn't matter that he lied, but in another sense it does because of the important position that he has.
How am I doing on time, Lisa? Okay. You've got a mitigation hearing coming up here, or at penalty phase. Tell me do you know what your mitigating factors are going to be and how you're going to play that?
Well, I've been told that I don't have any mitigating factors.
By who?
My attorney.
So Kirk Nurmi you're talking about? Kirk Nurmi said to you there are no mitigating factors for you in terms of arguing against the death penalty.
Nothing that is what you typically see in a case like this, such as a childhood where there was drugs, alcoholism, molestation, things like that. None of those things occurred in my family. So, I don't know. I guess we would sort of joke that my mom didn't beat me hard enough, so I don't really have mitigation.
So what are you going to do? I talked to the attorney and who's handling it. She seems like a very pleasant woman. She said she's got a week-long case.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they feel that I would be a suitable candidate to behave myself in a correctional facility and just not be a problem. That may be their angle. I don't know.
Did you have any knowledge of, the interest in your case? Do you have an idea of how many people are interested?
I hear things, but I have no access to the news, the internet, that sort of thing. No direct access.
What kinds of things do you hear?
I do get the newspaper, so that's been one portal where I've learned things. A lot of inmates have come in to the jail since then, and they tell me they want to come up and shake my hand. They want to give me a hug. They want my autograph. I'm not going to sign anything. They want a piece of something. So it's kind of strange, but that's given me an idea.
That has to be strange, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think when somebody comes up and asks you for your autograph?
It's kind of awkward. I mean, I want to be nice to people, but I tell them no. I don't think it's appropriate.
Why don't you sign things?
My goal isn't fame. My goal was just to get through this. So I certainly didn't want that to give off that impression.
Pretty a quote or a soundbite from your trial that's played over and over again, and you even smiled at it in court. It was Kurt Nurmi saying 9 days out of 10, even he doesn't like you.
Yeah.
What did you think when he said that?
I actually thought of Elizabeth Johnson's trial because I was reading the coverage in the paper, and her attorney told the jury that it's important. Well, I'm paraphrasing, but he told them that it's not about whether or not you like her. It's about the facts of the case. So I think it was, I believe it's standard somewhat that jurors need to remember it's not about whether or not you like the defendant.
Does Kirk like you?
I think 9 days out of 10. I mean,
9 days out of 10.
One day out of
10
9. 1 day out of 10. Yeah, I think so.
Why don't you get along?
Well, we got along very well for a long time, and then we just have had clashes in ideas, and ultimately he's the boss.
Anything you want to say to Juan Martinez?
No.
You seem to be writing quite a bit during testimony. Or were you drawing? What were you doing?
I was writing, just thoughts. When I heard something with testimony, I would write notes, pass it to Jennifer, pass it to Kirk, things like that, just to keep them informed.
So you weren't drawing?
There might be occasional little scribbles in the margins, but no drawing.
At that point. Anything else you want to talk about?
Not that I can think of. Well, actually, there is one more thing.
Yes.
I wanted to say, if I could tell somebody in a situation that I was in anything, I just would encourage them to document it. I think that it doesn't mean they have to turn the person in or betray them, but should a situation ever arise, I think documentation would have been very helpful in my case. And my sister is going through something right now with her ex-husband, and there are a lot of things that she could have documented that would help her. So it surprises me that even as she knows about what I've gone through, she still fails to document these things. And it's so easy. Save these text messages, save these incidents, write these things down, make reports. But they don't. People just don't do that. I don't know why women don't do that. I mean, some do. No, it's not black and white, it's not 100%, but if we could just make a record, then that record will stand should something happen down the line.
You've actually started, at least you tweeted out that you're selling T-shirts for a domestic violence shelter. Do you plan to continue those efforts?
Yes.
Why do you do that?
Well, I assumed that they were doing okay as is with government funding and things like that, just donations, but I've spoken with some people who have worked in those shelters and they always need donations. And it's important to me to be able to assist them in being able to assist survivors.
So I guess I'll wrap it up by saying, you talked about domestic violence. A lot of people are going to be seeing this. Is there one thing you'd like to get out to all those people?
Do you mean people in general?
Yes.
I'm sure I'll think of something very clever to say later. But
As you walk out,
yeah.
you can understand that.
I guess what I really want to say is to other women who are in a situation that I was once in, and it's like I just said, I wish they would just document it. That's it. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to turn the person you love in. You don't have to do anything. Just document it, just in case. It's better to have it and not need it than the opposite. And again, I think that things would be very different right now if I had documented all of the things that I went through, instead of being in a state of denial.
What would you like to say to all the people who seem to really dislike you, even hate you?
Well, maybe I should be flattered that they focus on me so much. If they dislike me so much, then why am I always on their radar?
I'm Ivan, by the way. I'm Troy's executive producer. Thank you for doing this. You were just talking about the people that don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you care at all? I mean, does it matter to you that people like you or don't like you? Is it going to matter to you wherever you end up, if you answer Troy?
At age 32, it doesn't matter. I think when I was arrested at age 28, it bothered me. And even before my arrest, before I ever imagined my life going in this direction, if I knew someone didn't like me, it would gnaw at me in the back of my mind. But at this point, I can truly say it's like water off a duck's back. I've reached a place, I wish I'd reached this place years ago, but I think it just comes with age. But I've reached a place where it really doesn't bother me.
What about the domestic violence groups that don't believe your story and say, we don't want your help? There's some people out there saying that, keep your t-shirts, keep your efforts, we don't believe you.
Okay. I'm not aware of any organizations that help survivors of domestic violence that are calling a survivor of domestic violence, saying that they don't believe that person. That's not a good thing to say to somebody who's been through it. It would be like a child running and telling somebody what's going on with them, and the parent says, I don't believe you, or an authority figure says, I don't believe you. So you can imagine what it does to that person.
And then I have a question about the jury. You think they got it wrong, correct?
As far as premeditation, I know they got it wrong. Some said felony murder. I think that's a very ugly law sitting in my position. But as far as the way the law is written, I think I can understand how some reach that conclusion.
So what's your message to the jury right now?
Well, I don't know that I have a direct message for the jury. I know that I prayed constantly for every single one of them, so that's the jury that was brought to me. That's the jury that I was meant to have.
So you prayed for the jury?
I prayed prior to trial that the right jurors would be on my jury. So I just have to believe that those were the right jurors.
And the last question I have is, going back to when you were on the stand and Juan Martinez was cross-examining you, it was really tense. It felt like you were giving back as much as he was giving. What was going through your mind? What really did you want to say had there been no constraints in what to say at that point?
I would have said a lot more.
You want to say it now?
Well, I can't. I would have to think back to a specific incident.
Well, you told him he was scrambling your brain because he was yelling at you.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
What were you thinking when he was yelling at you?
I probably shouldn't say. There were a lot of times when he was beating up on other witnesses, more like attacking the messenger rather than the message. And I just wanted to be able to jump into their body and respond for them. Just because I feel like he is a bully.
I actually kind of expected you, when he would go after you like that, to shrink away or cry or be like, what? But instead, you did stand up to him.
Yeah, I think that if it had been any sooner, then trial did take a long time to finally get here. If it had been any sooner, I would have melted. I would have just fallen apart. But my confidence came on the stand from knowing that I'm up there and I'm ready to speak the truth, and I know that I know what happened, and that gave me a sense of inner strength to handle him. He can throw whatever curveballs he wants. I know what happened, and I'll answer it.
What are you going to do tomorrow?
I have court. I don't know.
What's tonight going to be like?
I'm hoping.
Knowing now the decision, how is tonight going to be different than every night leading up to today?
Well, I thought a lot about that, and I had a list of things that I wanted to do with my life if I were blessed with a second chance. So there are still things on that list I might be able to accomplish regardless. But tonight I was going to go back and visit with my family and break the news to my friends who have been very supportive. And just business as usual tonight, and then we'll see what tomorrow brings.
Thank you, Jodi. You gotta get all your stuff off of here. I was going to try to show you what your Twitter page looks like, but we have no service down here. Here's what the home page looks like. That's my home page. So yours is a shot of you in court.
Yeah.
And then down below is a whole bunch of the groupings of what you write. So you only get 140 characters.
Okay.
And then you're able to direct message here. That's how Donovan was able to get in touch with me a couple of times.
I see.
So if you ever need to get in touch with me again, you've got my number, and Donovan can obviously get through and do that there.
Thank you.
Stay in touch. I mean, I don't know what I can do for you on the outside, but you've done a lot for me by sitting down with me today, and I respect the fact.
Well, I read when you gave me your that postcard kind of thing that you said you have daughters.
I do.
And I don't know how old they are, but
11 and 14.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're a great dad. I don't know you, but I guess I just would daughters are really fragile as far as.
I think about that all the time. My wife and I talk about it quite a bit. My 14-year-old had a boyfriend who we weren't really crazy about. It's her first ever boyfriend, and she's still crazy about him. And I'm going back and forth about what to do about it.
Yeah. It's so common that they tend to choose. Well, I mean, at 14 it's a little different, but it's common that they will choose men very similar to the kind that raised them.
And that's why I'm trying to reassure my wife, because I am a good guy.
Yeah.
Ivan can back me up on that. Lisa probably a little bit. I don't know if you want to ask her.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that to be a reflection on my own dad. I mean, he's done the best he can.
Your dad has?
Yes.
He wasn't there very much. He's got health issues, correct?
Yeah, he has a lot of health issues.
Is he going to come down to visit you, think?
I believe he will.
Do you talk to him on the phone?
Yes.
What kinds of things, if you want to share? What has he told you?
His thoughts and his feelings. He really wanted to interview with Fox because he likes that network the most.
Would you allow him to do that now?
I don't know. It's really up to him. So we haven't talked about it much.
All right, I think I gotta let you go.
Thank you. Do you know what time it is?
What time it is?
Yeah.
It's 20 after 3.
Okay, thanks.
Other stuff. This was really, really big for me. Thank you so much.
I know.
Really appreciate that. And it wasn't easy for you to do, and I'll never forget it. So if you ever need anything, I'm not kidding, give me a call.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Okay. No stripes, guys.
Right.
You got it.
We took her love off?
Yes, we're all good.
Jodi, when you get to Australia, you need to ask for the Lieutenant Colonel.
You guys are rolling, right? Okay.
Ask for Lieutenant Gundy.
You do that one. What is it? High five.
And maybe everybody. The one time that you started to tear up, a couple of times, you were talking about your nieces, talking about Travis's grandmother. Other times, it seemed as though you were just completely in control and maybe you were just having a regular conversation. How are you remaining so composed when this jury has your life in their hands?
Well, it was difficult. I think I was shaking, and I didn't know if anyone else would notice, but people commented on it afterward. I was almost convulsing. So I was very nervous. I was emotional, but it's like I have a lot of practice suppressing things, which isn't a good practice, but I utilized a little bit of that so that I could maintain my composure instead of getting overly emotional and not being able to proceed.
You realize people view that as being cold.
Well, they're not in my shoes, and I'm certainly not cold.
You mentioned in the previous interview that if you knew 5 years ago what you know now about how your relationship with Travis was so unhealthy, you would have gotten out. We know that on May 26th, Travis sent you that text or email that said you were the worst thing that ever happened in his life. Was he the worst thing that ever happened in your life?
That's difficult to answer because I don't even know how to answer that. I can't say yes and I can't say no.
Why?
Well, because it's such a complex question. It has a lot of facets to it. And I think with time and perspective, I would be able to answer that. But right now, it wouldn't be right to say yes, and I can't say no.
Do you still love him?
Yes.
How can you still love a man that threatened you, as you have alleged, and obviously scared you enough to do something that, I mean, it wasn't just a murder, it was a heinous, hideous murder. How can you say you still love that man that forced you, as you say, to do this to him?
Well, that wasn't the kind of person that he was trying to be. And Travis had many wonderful qualities, many redeemable qualities. And those are the qualities that I focus on. Those are the qualities that I liked and the qualities about him that I loved. And, I mean, there's this quote that says, "We love those that know the worst of us and don't turn their faces away." And I don't know who said it. But I think of my family when I think of that, but also because I know the worst of Travis. But I still wanted him to be happy, and I still wanted the best for him, and I never wanted any of this to happen.
What did you want to happen on June 4th, 2008? You went to his house. What were you expecting was going to happen?
I really expected us to just hang out like we'd always done, and that would be the day.
And it turned so horribly wrong.
It really did. Yeah. That's not what I was expecting at all.
At one point, the jury had a question for you, and they said, if you hadn't been caught, do you think you would have turned yourself in? And are you sorry you got caught? You said you couldn't answer that at the time.
Well, I couldn't answer that. I don't know if I would turn myself in. Mm-hmm. I'd like to think that I would, because that would be the right thing to do. On the other hand, can you imagine willingly giving up your freedom? That's a difficult decision to make.
So you wouldn't have done it?
I can't say that I wouldn't have. I can't say that I would have. I still don't know the answer to that question. And as far as being sorry that I got caught, I wouldn't couch it like that.
I've gotten
to see your mom in court every day, your grandma, your father showed up this week. When was the last time you saw your dad?
Well, he was here earlier in the trial while I was on the stand.
Yeah.
And prior to that, he's come, I think, one time in the 5 years. He doesn't travel very well.
Their hearts must be breaking.
Yeah, they are. They are.
There were a few times where you'd turn and look at them every now and then, but it seemed like it was few and far between. Why was that?
Well, I tried to remain focused on what was going on in the proceedings, so I didn't want to look back too much because I didn't want to take my attention off of what was important in the proceedings. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know how much you noticed, but I looked at them a lot because I don't know how much longer I'm going to see them, and I want to see them.
Are you taking a mental picture of them in your mind because you think you might die? Or are you...
Well, I think they'll still visit me regardless of the outcome, but I guess it just helps me and reinforces that I'm loved by these people that know the worst about me, and they still love me, and I look back and I see this whole row of support, and sometimes 2 rows deep, and that helps.
We could know tomorrow with the jury's decision. Are you mentally, emotionally ready to meet your maker if that's their decision?
Well, I'm ready to meet my maker, but if that time should come, but if that's their decision, it would drag on for years and years. So it's not really contemporaneous. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're saying you have a lot more time. Even if you get death, you still have years to live, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. That doesn't mean that it's a great quality of life or anything like that. Mm-hmm. If I got a death verdict, this thing keeps dragging on. And I'd really like to close this chapter. I hope that, I hope people can get closure. That's the goal for me. I want them to be able to get closure, get peace.
Travis's family.
Yes, very much. And I don't even know if that's possible. I hope it is. I hope it is for them. I don't know if it's possible. I wish I could just wave a wand and make it possible.
Do you think about, okay, if the jury comes back and they give me death, do you think about what that moment would be like? When
Yes.
they put the needle in your arm? You have thought about that?
I haven't thought about that, no.
Not at all?
Not in great detail.
What have you thought about pertaining to that?
I've thought about more like the moments immediately following the announcement of the verdict. I have a pretty clear idea of what's going to happen at that point. So at that point, it'll just be taking it day by day and seeing where things go.
So you really mentally haven't even gone there?
Mm-mm. I haven't. It's more like I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
But you did say that you preferred death at one point, and then today, because of your family, you said, I wouldn't want to put them through that. So at one point, it seemed as though you were thinking about death.
Yeah.
And preferring the death penalty.
Yes.
So you have thought about it.
Well, to that degree, yes. Just the fact that, I mean, I believe we are eternal, and in a sense, it's kind of like, well, if my life is over, why be a burden to my family? Why be a burden to the system? Why not just remove myself from this picture and move on? That's how I looked at it then. Mm-hmm.
Who convinced you? Did your family say, look, you have a life worth living? Did they convince you? Did the defense team convince you? Did something happen between that interview? I mean, it was a short period of time.
Yeah, actually, they've all said those things, but my cousin convinced me. The way she said it.
What did she say to you?
She said regardless of what happens, there's still a lot of hope and a lot of things that can be done, and don't do that to your mom. That's sort of the sum of what she said. She said it with a lot more effect, and it really drove it home for me. And a few days later, I saw my mom as well, and she told me the same thing. And it just reiterated that if I go against what they say, it's just going to cause so much pain, so much more pain.
What's your cousin's name?
I'd rather not say.
Okay. Is she in court every day? Is she?
She was for a while.
Okay.
She's not here today.
Okay. Why are you talking to the media on what could be the eve of your verdict, death or life? What's in it for you at this point?
Well, my hope is that my agenda at this point is to bring awareness to domestic violence, because I feel like, I'm here for my own bad choices, but in part I'm also here because of that. And I don't know if you'll air it or not, because I told Troy Hayden the same thing and it didn't air. But if I could say one thing, I just really want people to document what they go through, because if I had documented what I went through, there would be proof of it. And that's one of the big issues in my case, is that there is no physical proof. And had I documented that, there would be. And to this day, even my sister goes through things with an ex, and she documents it, or she says she does, but then sometimes she doesn't, and those things could help her later.
Is that what all the recording was about? Were you documenting at that point, or why did you start recording conversations? And it just seemed a little odd that it was a private moment and then you were recording those things.
Well,
was it?
That's just something we did. I've never done that with any guy before, and he wanted to, and at that point I was probably willing to, I was really a dumb girl at that time. I was probably willing to do anything for him.
But he didn't know you were recording it.
Yeah, he did.
He knew you were recording his
Right.
conversations. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we talked about it on a chat conversation right prior to that, except it didn't come in as evidence.
Okay. So the other reporter before me sort of touched on this. You know, from the outside looking in, the world looking at Jodi Arias at this point, they think that you love the attention. You know, you've allowed us to do interviews with you on the eve before the verdict. Are you enjoying the attention, for the record?
No, not this kind of attention. Not the kind of attention that I receive. Well, I'm not really aware of the attention. I'm very insulated where I am. And so, I mean, I get a lot of support mail.
Tell me about that. What kind of support mail?
Hundreds and hundreds. I have like 200 plus postcards right now that I don't even think that it's logistically possible to respond to everyone.
No. Well, what are they saying to you? Just give me an example of, you know, Joe Blow down the street.
Jodi, I listened to your testimony and I believe you. I'm in your corner. Or the best ones are when women write me and say, I was in a situation like yours before and I totally understand. Or thank you for your testimony. I've left the relationship that I was in because of what happened. Things like that. That if I can motivate one person to get out of a bad relationship, or if I can motivate one person to at least document what's going on, you know, something, then that's better than if they just went down the path that I went down.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Well, it's not the best legacy, but if anything, I'd like to be an example of... I want people to see what happens when you don't document what's going on.
A cautionary tale.
Cautionary tale is good. I think that's appropriate. I can't stress enough how important that is. We have so much technology that's so easy to operate this day, and it's affordable, and there's just ways to document what you're going through so that there's never any question about what has happened should that ever arise. You don't even have to use it. You don't have to turn in the person you love if you don't want to, because most people won't.
Yeah.
I know I certainly didn't want to. But it's there just in case.
Back to the abuse. That day in that bathroom, when you feared for your life as you say you did, before you dropped the camera, what were the last words Travis said to you?
I don't remember it was just idle chit-chat.
Like what?
We were talking about the pictures, you know, no, that one's good, we'll keep that one, we'll delete that one, okay. You know, just common stuff pertaining to that situation.
And he went from that to, I'm gonna kill you over a camera?
It wasn't instantaneous. It built within a matter of minutes.
Obviously, you regret what happened. Other than that, what other regrets do you have pertaining to all of this?
I regret, well, I don't know if I was in a state of mind at that time to have the perspective that I have now. So it's hard to have that regret if it wasn't even a possibility then. But I wish, if anything, I wish I'd had the perspective that I had now.
What state of mind were you in?
Post-arrest. That's what kind of what I was referring to.
Okay. Okay, I was referring to the actual, what was happening.
Oh, the day of.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
the day of. What was your state of mind? I mean, you went there, you had hours of sex with this guy who you'd broken up with. He invited you in. Once again, confusing, muddying the waters, right?
Yes.
Were you just so frustrated with him and so angry with him?
No, I don't feel like I was ever angry with Travis.
You were never a scorned, bitter woman, jealous by these other women?
I had no knowledge of it. I assumed there were other women because that was his modus operandi. But we weren't in a relationship, so I can't dictate. I don't think I could ever dictate, even if we are in a relationship, what he does. That's his choice, and I was moving on in my area, and it was just hard to completely break away. So we hang out again like we always did, and
you just couldn't make that break. And he really couldn't either. He kept inviting you back for more.
Yeah, he did.
Is that the downfall right there? If you had just gone your separate ways?
I think about that a lot. What if I had just, when I moved 1,000 miles away from him, what if I just crossed over that border into California and never looked back? Never answered the phone again, never responded to another email or text message, just stopped. I think about that a lot.
And what have you come of that? I mean,
I can't change the past, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life.
A lot of women have that problem. The ex still texting, there's some communication, they go back, they go forth, you know. There's a lot of women have that problem, but it doesn't end as horrifically tragic.
I know. Well, I don't think that ex attacks them and threatens to kill them. So I really wish that I could do all of that over, and I would never go there.
Daniel Freeman was a good friend of yours.
Yeah, he was.
He told us in an interview, not me, but one of our other reporters, that he felt that if it was an option, that you should get the death penalty. How does that make you feel, someone who was a good friend of yours at one time?
Well, he's just one of the same herd that's judged me since then. If he's changed his tune, he's entitled to his opinion, and it's no different than all of my other friends who've said the same. My so-called former friends.
Speaking of judgment, you must know all of America sits in judgment of Jodi Arias right now, and you really have been deemed the most hated woman in America. How does that make you feel?
I didn't know that. Actually, I feel a lot of love and support from people who write in and believe me and want to help me and want to be there for me, and I've received an outpouring of love and support from other people. So all of that, it doesn't reach me.
One of the deputies actually told me you had a mountain of mail in your jail cell, and they actually had to get rid of it because it was a fire hazard. Is that true?
They made me, I don't know when this was, but I was ordered to release it, so it went to my attorneys. Yeah.
Just too much for you to even open.
Well, we only get postcards here, so this was all mail that was read, and it just built up with time.
You know, Samantha Alexander, that day she took the stand and Stephen Alexander took the stand. There were moments where I think the jury finally saw you, maybe feeling some remorse. We saw you crying. We saw tears rolling down your cheeks. Samantha said, "We will never get those images of our brother's neck being slit out of our minds." How have you gotten that out of your mind?
It's not out of my mind, but mostly I've avoided looking at it, but it's there. I've seen it.
How do you go on living with that? How do you, I mean,
I think it's suppressed a lot of times, and I think it comes out in nightmares.
You have nightmares?
I've been told that I scream and cry in my sleep, and several times I've woken myself up screaming. I don't have memories of the nightmares, so I'm not sure what I'm dreaming about. I've lived with roommates over the years, and they consistently report that about me.
But you've had them here since you've been incarcerated.
Yes.
Now, you touched on the mental illness. Most people think what you did to Travis Alexander is insane. Juan Martinez said you killed him 3 times. Why didn't they do an insanity plea?
I don't know.
Don't you think the jury would have really believed that? I mean, after looking at all of the evidence, why? You even said you don't know, you've kind of dabbled in, you feel that you have several things going on with your psyche.
Yeah, I don't know why that decision was made. I really don't.
You realize people look at you and you're slender and svelte and this tiny waif of a woman on trial, and they are baffled how you could have done that to a man of Travis's size.
I think when you get into a fight or flight situation and the adrenaline kicks in, you gain extra strength. That's my theory. I don't have memory of a lot of what happened that day, but we all know that when you're in a situation and your adrenaline kicks in, you're physically capable of more than you typically are, such as, the mother who lifts the car off her child. Who could lift a car?
Sure.
But
We've all done those stories, sure.
Right. So I don't know if it's one of those situations or not. I know that, I don't remember it, but I know that it happened. And
if you could go back to a younger version of Jodi, what would she say right now? How would she make her life different?
What age are we talking?
I don't know. When do you think it all started to go badly for you? Do you think it was when you left home at 15? Do you think that was kind of the turning point? Because, listening to the defense today, they claimed you were abused and neglected, and basically your family turned away from you very early is what they claimed.
It was more like emotional neglect. I don't know that I would take back those experiences, even though they weren't great, because I felt like the trajectory of my life prior to meeting Travis was on a good path. And even though my parents and I had differences, I thought that I had put it behind me. And this case has brought up so many issues that we still had unresolved. There are so many points in time where I could say, this is where it changed, or this is where it changed. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to pinpoint that moment, because even right up to the day, things could have been done differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned your mom had a letter. She was prepared to read in court, and she wanted to read for you. What did that letter say?
She only told me some of the elements, basically just listing all of the qualities she felt were redeemable about me, things I've done to help other people.
Like what? What does your mom think is redeemable about you?
She wanted to talk about the ways I help people in here. I help them sometimes with letters to the court. I've helped them learn sign language occasionally. She wanted to talk about, I feel like I'm tooting my own horn when I say all this. So I've
asked you the question, so toot away.
Well, I feel I'm comfortable, but I've done things to help people. And
right.
I tell my mom.
Your mom didn't get to say this in court, so I'm giving you the opportunity now to tell America what your mom didn't get to say. So feel free.
I haven't seen the letter, but some of my good deeds, I'd rather just keep them anonymous. So I think she was more about, she wanted the jury to know that about me, those things.
Yeah, she's hurting, isn't she?
Very much.
I see it in court. I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, she's hurting.
All right. I think her time is up. If you had one thing that you could say to anyone out there, other than victims of domestic violence, more like Travis's family or your haters or something along those lines, what would it be, and what would you say?
Well, I'd say two different things to those groups. I hope that people are able to heal. I want them to be able to heal from this. I don't know if they will be able to, but I hope they can. I really do.
Are you going to be able to heal? Have you healed? Have you?
I haven't healed. I think it's possible, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
If you get life in prison with parole, do you think you could be rehabilitated? Do you think you need rehabilitation?
Well, as far as being a law-abiding citizen, I don't think I need very much rehabilitation because I'm not somebody who goes out and breaks the law. I'm not, contrary to what everyone thinks, I'm not dangerous to society. And I know that if I were given a second chance at freedom, that I would use that very responsibly. But if I spend 25 years in prison and then have that opportunity, certainly there would be some kind of rehabilitation needed, depending on where society is in that time period in the future.
Sure.
I have a quick question.
Jodi, oh, thank you. Yes,
Can
go
you
ahead.
look at Amy?
Yes, yes.
Just look at her.
That's Corey.
So today you said you feel you deserve life in prison because if you're put to death, it would hurt your family. And you feel you have more contributions you can make to inmates in prison. But you have devastated Travis Alexander's family, and you have robbed society of the contributions he would make. Why do you feel you deserve more than Travis Alexander and his family?
I don't know that I do deserve it. I just know that my family doesn't deserve the pain. Travis's family doesn't deserve the pain either. But I don't know that I can do anything to change it. If I could, I would. And I wish that I knew how, so that I could do that.
Do you think that you deserve to die, but you don't want to put your family through it? Is that what I'm hearing here?
Well, I don't know that it's about deserving, because we all do, eventually. I just don't know. I mean, I can't say what I deserve, because it sounds so entitled, and that's not really my attitude. I just know that I just don't want to hurt people anymore.
Thank you.
How have you prepared yourself for the jury's next decision?
I'm just going to flow. I don't really have a lot of control over it. So it's whatever's going to happen, I just have to take it day by day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. You haven't thought about it, is what you said to me earlier.
Yeah.
Denial?
I know
Denial,
what...
denial.
A look right now from Estrella Jail, where Jodi Arias is waiting for word on whether she will live or die. Tonight, she's answering our tough questions before she learns her sentence.
Her fate is in the hands of the jurors tonight, and lover or hater, there are answers we feel we must get from the convicted murderer.
Tonight, many of you contacted us asking why we agreed to interview Arias at all. It's a point well taken. Our job as journalists is to interview the people who make news, be they hero or villain, and to ask the questions we haven't heard answers to yet. ABC 15's Amy Murphy just finished talking to Arias, and it was a no-holds-barred interview.
And Amy, it sounds like you did not hold back. How did Arias handle the pressure?
You know, she was very poised, I have to say, and when we showed up, she had rules of her own. No shots of the handcuffs. She didn't want us shooting her prison stripes, which were her pants below. And she also said that she wanted us to turn the cameras off while she combed her hair and put a little lip gloss on for the cameras. Now, as I sat down with one of the world's most notorious killers, I didn't know what to expect either. I asked her if she was ready to meet her maker.
We could know tomorrow with the jury's decision. Are you mentally, emotionally ready to meet your maker if that's their decision?
Well, I'm ready to meet my maker, but if that time should come, but if that's their decision, it would drag on for years and years. So it's not really contemporaneous. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're saying you have a lot more time. Even if you get death, you still have years to live, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And she seemed very surprised when I told her that many people deemed her one of the most hated women in America.
You must know all of America sits in judgment of Jodi Arias right now, and you really have been deemed the most hated woman in America. How does that make you feel?
I didn't know that. Actually, I feel a lot of love and support from people who write in and believe me and want to help me and want to be there for me. And I've received an outpouring of love and support from other people. So all of that, it doesn't reach me.
Poised and very much in control, as I mentioned. I asked her, is this just a facade, or is she really this calm always? And I also talked about Samantha Alexander and her plea in court and how she says she has these awful images of her brother, autopsy photos she just can't forget. I asked Jodi Arias how she can sleep at night with those images in her mind.
Samantha said, we will never get those images of our brother's neck being slit out of our minds. How have you gotten that out of your mind?
It's not out of my mind, but mostly I've avoided looking at it, but it's there, and I've seen it.
How do you go on living with that? How do you, I mean,
I think it's suppressed a lot of times, and I think it comes out in nightmares.
You have nightmares?
I've been told that I scream and cry in my sleep, and several times I've woken myself up screaming. I don't have memories of the nightmares, so I'm not sure what I'm dreaming about.
She says she's not sure what she's dreaming about, but if you remember during the trial, she also says she doesn't remember slitting Travis Alexander's throat. So she didn't say that during the interview. She does say that now she is having trouble dealing with that, much like Travis Alexander's family has had major trouble dealing with that. Now, as you mentioned at the top of the newscast, people were writing in and calling to us saying, why would you interview someone who has been given this first-degree murder verdict? You know what? We also asked the same question, why she would be giving interviews at this point with possibly the verdict being read tomorrow. And the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department says, you know what? We've gotten tweets, we've gotten hate mail, we've gotten a barrage of phone calls from the public, and this is her First Amendment right. One last note. I asked her about her attorneys and all of the mayhem in court in this last week. The defense saying, you know, they've had it, they can't do it anymore, they can't give her a good defense. We asked Arias if she believed they had done a good job for her, and she said, yes, indeed, she believed that they had put up a pretty good fight.
And Amy,
live outside Estrella Jail, Amy Murphy, back to you in the studio.
And Amy, we were so waiting for 2 words through all 19 minutes when she was up there today. Did she say the words to you? What we were all waiting for?
I'm sorry for this. Yeah.
I'm sorry. She's sorry about a lot of things. She never said, I'm sorry for killing Travis Alexander. She said, I'm sorry it happened. She said, I am sorry I didn't document abuse. She's sorry for a lot of things.
Other key points of premeditation. Talk about your reaction to gas can claims and theories. What's your take on that as a defendant, and more importantly, what do you think if you were a juror in that room and you're hearing things like that on top of the claims of the gun?
Well, I definitely have things to say about that, but I've been advised not to talk about it because of possible appeals and things.
What about the idea that you're active cell phone user and always use your cell phone very actively, and suddenly it goes off? What's your thought on that? What's your reaction to that as a juror?
Same answer. I'm sorry. I'd like to answer that because I do have things to say about that, but they told me don't relitigate the case. So.
Will there be a time you feel comfortable doing that, or
sure.
If they come back with a death sentence, do you plan to appeal until you run out all of your appeals?
For the sake of my family, I do. Yes.
You talked about wanting to try to affect positive change in prison. We've talked about many other examples. Have you had success with that as an inmate so far?
I believe I have.
Like, what's an example of that? Where you felt like you changed somebody or affected somebody?
Well, there's a certain mood or atmosphere, because in this jail we have different housing units and there are different inmates in each housing unit, and it creates the makeup of people in there create a certain chemistry, a certain environment, a certain mood, and that can be affected in a way. I think I do it without knowing it, because people come up to me and tell me, they tell me about the positive influence I've had on them or on the people around me and that sort of thing, and and they thank me for it. And that was never my intention. I think they've looked at my attitude throughout the years here as something. I feel like I'm tooting my own horn.
Do you think, specifically, they were inspired? Why exactly? They thank you for what?
Just because of I tend to keep a positive attitude about things.
I thought you were suicidal at various points.
Well, I was, but that's not something that you tell people, because then they haul you off to suicide watch and it sucks. So, like if somebody comes back from court and they said, I got released, I'm genuinely happy for that person. I'm not like bitter because I'm still in here and they're getting out. So usually it's just being able to appreciate other people and what they're going through and their experiences.
A few last questions here, Jodi. You've said a number of times now that your family is the reason that you want to sort of fight for your life and file these appeals. Let's take your family out of it. Do you still feel that death is the ultimate freedom? If you didn't have your family in the picture, would you rather die than be in prison for the rest of your life?
I do believe that death is the ultimate freedom. If I didn't have my family here, it would be difficult to say. I still feel like there are ways that I can contribute, and almost that I owe it to others to do what I can to contribute to them. So it's difficult to say.
So you still have a chance, right? Your lawyers probably advise this. The judge, if you get life, can say you're eligible for release after 25 years, right?
Right.
How optimistic are you that scenario happening?
Not optimistic.
Not optimistic at all? What percentage optimistic do you think you are?
Well, I think that I deserve, if I get life, I deserve to have a second shot at freedom someday, because I know I'd be very responsible with it. However, and I can't predict the future, but based on some of the rulings that have made previously, I can see the judge leaning toward natural life as opposed to giving me any shot of a chance later.
How do you feel the judge has handled this case? Fair?
Well, I'm biased, so it's difficult to answer that question. I think.
I'm asking your opinion.
Well, I don't know. I don't feel that it's fair, but maybe it's fair and I'm just biased.
Did you get a fair trial?
I don't think I did.
Why didn't you get a fair trial?
I believe the jury should have been sequestered. And whether or not they heard anything, I know they've seen a lot of things and that they have been harassed by the media, because we've made several records of it and they've made record of it in closed hearings.
Jodi, this will be my last question. I think Josh will probably have another one, but I guess going back to the attack, I mean, I guess, we talk about that Travis attacked you and then you were defending yourself, but I know there's this fog that you're in, but how can you explain the sheer brutality of the attack, the amount of stab wounds, the slit throat, the shot to the forehead? How do you explain that, even if you can't remember it, looking back, thinking that you did this?
I remember feelings, and one of my feelings that I remember that was most prominent was severe mortal terror. And I don't know if that explains why things happened the way they did, but it was definitely fight or flight.
Can you talk just a little more about your mother throughout this ordeal? How often do you talk to her? What's her mood been like? What's financially, how's she doing?
She's doing horribly financially. She lost her job of 17 years to be at my trial, along with all of her benefits.
That was a dental hygienist job?
She was not a hygienist. She was a receptionist.
Oh, receptionist.
Yes. She was a dental assistant.
She didn't be here, so she couldn't keep her job, is what you're saying.
Yeah, she had been telling them for 4 years, I'm going to my daughter's trial, will you be able to hold my position? They said, we don't know, and then I think about a few weeks or a month into her being here, they fired her.
And how does she pay for hotels, or where does she stay? How does she, without giving locations, how does she do it?
We have family here. She's staying with them.
She's staying with family members?
Yes.
And how often do you talk to her? Like
every day.
For example.
Every day. I call her every day.
You call her, you collect calls?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You see her in person? How often?
I'm limited on the type of the number of visits I can receive here, so we use them all. We max out the visits every week.
So has it actually made you and your mother closer through this whole process?
I would say yes. It's kind of forced us to be closer, and that's caused some growing pains. But ultimately, I think it has.
And how does it feel knowing that, I mean, one of the things you talked about was the Christmas picture, and one of the things they showed at the end was the Christmas picture and with you. And how do you feel knowing that you most likely won't be able to spend a Christmas again with your family?
It's heartbreaking, but I have to consider the fact that Travis isn't either, and it's hard. I don't like to focus so much on me. I put all of that stuff about me in my allocution because that's my attorneys recommended that I do that, and they said allocution is about you and your life, and we'd like you to focus on that, your life before Travis. And so I led up to that, and we thought it would be good to put that picture in, and I thought it was a powerful picture, and so we included it. And I really hope that it wasn't, that was one segment of my allocution, so I really hope that I didn't come across as it's all about me, because it really isn't. As I did state in allocation, theirs is the greater loss.
When you were being interrogated by Rachel Blaney, remember her, Siskiyou County deputy? She went through a lot of deep scenarios for you, and I know you've explained this before, but I just want to hear it in person, where she said, she was being very nice, I thought in the interview it seemed like, and she was saying, if things got a little violent or out of control, these things happen, it's okay, Jodi, just tell us what happened, and we can move on and do it for the family and things like that. Why not, why were you so adamantly denying it when she was giving you opportunity after opportunity to say, it's okay, Jodi, it's okay, things happen, the relationships can become tumultuous. Why not, that was your opportunity, why not say something then?
I wasn't anywhere near ready to admit that I could have been capable of that. So even though every time she said that, it just hit home, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's reading my mind, oh my gosh. You know, but I couldn't bring myself to say, okay, fine, this is what happened. I just was not mentally ready to even go there or even admit to myself that I lost control like that.
Thank you, Jodi.
You're welcome.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think that's all.
You done for the night?
Yeah. You guys are the last.
Jodi, we'll get started here. The first question I want to ask you is, why agree to do an interview before you even know what your sentence is?
Well, I felt obligated because I made a verbal agreement, and I felt overly obligated this time because there's been so much, how do I say it? So much, sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but my credibility was in the toilet, basically. And because I made this agreement, I felt, well, I definitely have to keep this agreement because, you know, I'm not this person that lies all the time.
So this interview is a chance to set the record straight.
Well, I guess it's more about, I mean, if I had an agenda, my agenda for the interviews would be to bring awareness to domestic violence. That's kind of like my mission now.
You said that, I heard you earlier, and you said that you were speaking your truth. But today, to the jury, you told them, I admit, I've said many lies before. So which one is it?
Well, I think the difference is that I'm not still lying about lying. I've lied. That was years ago. And whether or not I'm believable to the public is not important to me. I just know that I need to go forward. That's all I can do.
Do you think you committed a crime?
I think I should pass on that question.
Okay. I know that you've said that this was all in self-defense, that terrible night in 2008.
Yeah.
If it was self-defense, though, what would you have done differently that day? I know you've said that you wouldn't have gone over in the first place, but let's say, what would you have done differently in the heat of the moment?
Well, it's hard to, I know what I would do now, but in the heat of the moment.
What would you do?
Okay, in the heat of the moment I wasn't thinking, but the thing that would have made the most sense is to go left instead of right and run out of there. I can't say, I was panicked, I was scared, it was the heat of the moment.
If it was self-defense, did Travis deserve to die?
I don't believe that Travis deserved to die. I don't recall. I do have memory gaps, and I wish that I could take back everything that happened. I never believed that he deserved to die. I flashed and I reacted, and here I am. And a lot of people have been hurt in the process. And if I could take that back, I would do that in a second.
You were placed on suicide watch, but were you ever truly suicidal?
There were times, yes.
I'm talking about post-verdict, when you were placed on suicide watch. Were you ever truly suicidal?
Where I was going to actually go do it, I don't think so, no. But certainly the thought had crossed my mind, like, could I do this, could I do that? But no, I don't think I was ever a real danger to myself, not immediate.
Today you begged a jury for your life.
Yes, that's true.
Why?
It really has to do with my family. Sometimes I'm able to detach and think, well, they'll get over it, they'll move on, it's going to hurt them, but I can't think about that because then that'll stop me, right? But now I can't not think about it because there is still, it's just not right to do that. I've hurt so many people already, and all I would be doing is creating a whole bunch more pain.
I've heard you say that you relive what happened that day in 2008 over and over and over again. Do you dream about Travis?
I've had some dreams, yes. I've had some really difficult dreams about Travis, but typically I don't remember my nightmares. Sometimes I wake myself up screaming, but I can't really remember what it was. It fades very fast. Other times my roommates will report that I was screaming or crying or kicking in my sleep or writhing, but I have no memory of it.
Have you ever had any conversations with Travis in any dreams?
There was an interesting dream I had 2 weeks after I was arrested, and in my dream I walked into the holding tank where I was being housed in the jail in California, and Travis was kicked back on one of the bunks. And I stopped and I was really shocked. I said, "What are you doing here?" And he just casually shrugged his shoulders and said, "We all have to do time for what we've done."
I've heard you say you pray. What do you pray for? Are you praying that the jury is going to spare your life?
Well, I can't say I'm praying for that. I'm praying at this point for the best thing to happen. And sometimes we don't know what the best thing is, even though we think we do. We know what we want, but we don't know if that's the best thing. So what I'm praying for now is that the best thing happens. And whatever happens will be that.
If you do get the death penalty, what's going to go through your mind?
I think I will be shell-shocked all over again, but I have a very long-term perspective now, so it's something that I will deal with.
Why did you choose to show your artwork to the jury?
That was a choice. That was a recommendation by my attorneys, so we just kept it limited. I have probably 50-plus pieces, and we picked out 7.
But what does your artwork say to the jury? What does that say about you?
I think it was more to show the jury this is who I am, and this is who I was prior to meeting Travis. And that was the purpose of showing the artwork, was to show my family, show where I came from, and show what I do. And that's just one area that I feel I've excelled at in my life. So it's a part of me, and it's a part of my life. It's a part of my existence. Therefore, it was a part of the presentation.
It's very possible that the jury is going to sentence you tomorrow. What do you deserve?
I can't really comment on that. What I receive will be what I deserve, I believe.
So you'll be at peace with the death sentence?
It'll be a sentence. It won't be necessarily going off to receive the death penalty immediately. So I don't know what a death sentence means.
How did you feel when you heard Juan Martinez say Travis Alexander will always be 30 years old because you killed him?
That's something I've thought about over the years because Travis was very close to turning 31. And when I turned 30, I thought about that. And when I turned 31, I realized that I'm older now, even though he was born 3 years before me. And that was difficult.
Do you miss Travis?
I miss all of the good traits about him. Taken in that context, yes, I do.
You know, I have to ask you, when you hear the words Jodi Arias, convicted killer, what goes through your mind?
It's a sinking feeling. It's something that I'd known was a possibility for years, leading up to trial. But now that I am, it's heavy.
I know you said it was self-defense, but why such a violent killing? Why stab him so many times? Why slit his throat? Why shoot him?
I wish I could answer that. The gunshot definitely came first, and that wasn't intentional. That was something that was not, I didn't intend for that to happen. The things which came afterward, I don't know. I blacked out. There's been questions. I mean, certainly it was self-defense. All I remember is the mortal terror that I felt. And
did you think you were going to die that night?
Certainly. Yeah, that was the motivation for all of it.
This may sound harsh, but a lot of people out there feel that the only true justice for Travis Alexander is for you to get a death sentence.
That's not justice, that's revenge.
And what about revenge?
Well, if they believe in revenge, then I guess I can understand that sentiment.
What we hear all the time is people get very upset that you seem very stone-faced, that we're not seeing tears, that we're not seeing remorse. How do you feel about that opinion?
Well, they're entitled to their opinion. They're not in my shoes, and they don't know what I feel inside, and they don't know what I do when I go back to my cell. And if I'm not crying in public, it doesn't mean that I don't cry when nobody's watching. And additionally, I'm shell-shocked. I've been through so much that it's like a frayed nerve. It almost doesn't work anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't have feelings. Of course I do. And there are a lot of times when I cry, it tends to be private, and it's difficult for me to cry when others are present. I don't want sympathy. I don't want everyone coming up to me and saying, "Are you okay?" And additionally, when I cry, they're just going to think my tears are fake anyway. So
there's one more thing that I think is hard for the public and for Travis's family, and that's that minutes after they convicted you of murder, you said, "Give me the death penalty." And then today, you changed your story.
Well, I never said, "Give me the death penalty." I said I would prefer the death penalty. And when I said that, that was absolutely true. It's kind of like, my life is over. Let's move on. There's eternity awaiting. And that was my belief. And it's still my belief that eternity awaits. But eternity is always going to be there. And it's going to be there whether I live another 70 years or 10 or 2 days. It's going to be there. But I can't do that. It's after my cousin told me that. She said, "Don't do that to your mom." And I didn't want to hear that. But it's like, I'm not going to do that to my mom, but to ask for death would be doing that to my family. In a sense, it's almost like suicide. It's like assisted suicide.
How did it feel to have intimate, very graphic pictures of you all over that courtroom for everyone, including your family, to see?
It's indescribable. It's awful. There's not a word to describe it, but if you could think of mortified to like the 100th power, you just want to crawl under the table and disappear. And I just wanted to shrink and melt away. And it's I can't describe it. It's extremely embarrassing, to put it very mildly.
That was a really tortured relationship. If you really disliked him, and if you really disliked the way he treated you, why'd you stick around?
It's so hard to get back to where I was then, because I look back at myself then and I just want to reach back in time and shake myself and tell myself, what are you doing? Go. And I just felt like there was this hook inside of me and I couldn't unhook myself. And I felt like every time I made that attempt, there were so many wonderful ways that I would get one back and I would be reminded of why I loved him. And those were the good times, and it's almost like it was too good at times to just walk away.
Hi. Hi. I don't know if you... Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too.
No, actually, I've never heard your name. I saw your name on the screen and I logged in and I'm like, well, she's not there, so I just walked away. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Sorry, my laptop was kind of acting up.
Hold on, someone's calling me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, sorry.
It's okay. Who you were talking to yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, that poor girl. Oh my gosh. Her mother is something else. Like, yikes, she's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she said that she had mentioned me, but maybe not. I just wanted to...
You know what she might have? But she talks so fast. She's so funny. She has, no attention span. She's, all over the place. She's on her phone, and she's over here. Then she's look at my room, look at Justin Bieber. Wait, hold on my phone. Yeah. It's kind of funny.
But, yeah.
Yeah, hi. So are you guys in school together, or what?
Oh, no, I actually met her over Twitter, so...
Oh, did you? Okay. Do you live in a different state?
I live in Ohio.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Right on. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. You're really pretty, by the way.
Oh, thanks. So are you. You're really cute.
Oh, thank you.
I feel so bad for her because we were on this visit yesterday, and you could tell, she was sitting with her laptop, and you could tell her mom walked in because she looks up, and her jaw, drops, she gets the fear of God in her eyes. And I could hear her mother, and she's got this East Coast accent and this real deep voice, and she's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, oh, God. And she's like, what did I tell you? And I'm like, oh, my goodness. It was this deep voice with this East Coast accent. And so I X'd out really quick because I heard she was going to get, some heat for it. And I felt so bad. And then I guess she called one of my friends. She was upset. And her phone got taken away and a lot of her privileges. So she's kind of I don't know, grounded or something. But I feel so bad for her. She's a nice girl.
She is.
Yeah. So what's your Twitter handle? Let me write it down.
My Twitter...
Okay. Right on. Cool.
Yeah.
So you probably get a lot of heat on Twitter.
Yeah.
People can be so mean on Twitter.
They can.
Don't listen to any of that BS. Just block them and move on.
Yeah, I know. I woke up to so many notifications, so much hate, and I just blocked them all. I'm not even worth my time.
Shut them all down. I love it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Good for you.
So how
are you following my handle on Twitter? I'm not still tweeting, but my handle is @Jodi Arias. That was my hand. I was tweeting last year, but I stopped a year ago.
Yeah, I actually just
has taken over it, and they just put things out there,
Yeah, I'm following.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, right on. Good. That's cool. So, okay.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Gosh, you have perfect teeth. They're all straight.
Thank you.
That's cool. Yeah. I know. I did wear my retainers, so mine got crooked. So make sure you wear your retainers. Did you get braces?
Yeah. I actually never wore my retainers, so I kind of grew out of them, and my parents got so mad.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. You can have them recast. It costs money, but you can have them redone because they say they'll continue to move over the years. Mine haven't really moved much since my early 20s, but I wish I would have because my front ones stick out more and I hate it, but it is what it is. So. Oh, well, at least we're healthy,
Yeah.
So that's what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how have you been?
What grade are you in? Are you like?
I'm a
sophomore?
yes, sophomore.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Wow. Nice to meet you.
You too. Sorry, I'm like really shy and kind of awkward.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's fine. No, you're doing fine. I know it's kind of weird at first, especially like when you first meet somebody, even if it's just like, even if it's not under these circumstances, it's still weird. You know,
Yeah.
the awkwardness, and it's even more different because I'm like in here and it's like, I don't know, it's just weird. The whole thing is kind of weird. But,
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. So.
Yeah. How have you been holding up?
I don't know. Like the last few days have been a little crazy, like overwhelming. I mean, like when everything happened on Thursday, I was whisked out of the courtroom like Secret Service style. We went to the basement underground to across the street under a tunnel and everything. It was crazy. And so we hung out there for a while. Me and this like security detail. We hung out there for I don't know, like an hour and a half until things died down, and then they took me this back route back to this jail. And like they got me inside real quick, and everything was like I was just kind of like wow, you know, after everything. And then later that night, after things settled down a little, I just totally broke down because I was thinking of that one juror that didn't want to vote death, and I'm like I owe my whole life to her. Like I'm just wow. It's still amazing to me because what are the chances? Like someone upstairs still like has some compassion for me because. Like, she could have been drawn as an alternate and not been on my jury at all, and she's the only one that wanted to, you know, go against the grain. So I don't know, I started thinking about how heavy that really is when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so the verdict was like, it was like all live when I was in school, so I was freaking out and I was gonna like break down into tears, and I'm like, I really hope that I like support you so much. No, I didn't. But I'm so glad that.
What? Are they broadcasting all the highlights now and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, hate on Twitter. Like, a lot of people are saying they're going to track down Juror 17. I'm like, that's horrible. Like, they did nothing wrong.
So sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just absolutely sick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, oh, look at this thing that was in the I wanted to tweet this. This is the local newspaper in Arizona, and this cartoonist, he always does comics, and it shows a female juror, right? And at the bottom it says the lone juror holdout, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then right here it says no revenge killing, life in prison. And then up at the top it says profile encourage. And I was like, oh wow, so it's like all one picture, you know? I was like, I need to find this image and tweet it, because that is amazing, but I'm not on Twitter. So it's pretty, and I can't stand this cartoonist because, like right on the eve of my jury selection last October, or last September, he put out this horrible comic showing me, and it was awful. It was comparing me to ISIS. You know the terrorist group ISIS? Have you heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said the Middle East has ISIS, Arizona has Arias.